Do you still remember that old slogan? Have only one child, and the government will take care of your old age. 40 years have passed. Policies have changed, the tone has softened, and now it has become, here's 300 yuan. Hurry up and give birth. From strict birth restrictions to today's frantic push for childbirth, the U-turn in China's population policy has been nothing short of shocking. Starting in 2025, authorities announced that families with children under age 3 will receive an annual childcare subsidy of 3,600 yuan, equivalent to 300 yuan per month. But can these 100 yuan bills truly revive a birth rate that has crashed to historic lows? Is this a turning point, or just compensation after the sheep are lost? Authorities claim this will help build a fertility-friendly society. But the question is, hasn't the least fertility-friendly force in China been the very hands now offering subsidies? In today's major current affairs Insight Focus, we examine the logic behind this new policy, young people's explosive reactions, scholars' cold assessments, and comparisons with neighboring countries, to uncover whether these 300 yuan represent real support or belated redemption. Background of the childcare subsidy policy. On July 28, CCP state media Xinhua reported that the General Office of the CCP Central Committee and the General Office of the State Council jointly issued the implementation plan for a childcare subsidy system. The notice instructs local governments and departments to fully carry out the plan. According to the plan, beginning January 1, 2025, a subsidy will be granted for all legally born children under age 3. The national basic standard is 3,600 yuan per child per year, paid annually until the child turns 3. Interestingly, the CCP emphasized that the policy aims to implement the Party Central Committee's decisions on improving the fertility support policy system and incentive mechanisms, and to promote the construction of a fertility-friendly society. This sounds highly ironic. The same regime that spent decades hostile to childbirth now claims to be building a fertility-friendly society. Why such an open slap in its own face? The background: CCP's birth policy failure. From 1979 to 2015, China enforced an aggressive one-child policy, coupled with rapid urbanization, causing the birth rate to plunge for decades. By 2023, China officially fell behind India in population. To slow the population decline, the CCP abolished the one-child rule in 2016, encouraged 2 children, and in 2021 allowed couples to have 3. But after nearly 40 years of strict birth control, the damage is done. The 3-child policy has failed to reverse the downward trend. According to census data, China's population experienced negative growth for 3 consecutive years from 2022 to 2024, the direct consequence of a draconian policy implemented from 1979 to 2016. The Financial Times reported on July 25 that China's collapsing birth rate is devastating the education system. Tens of thousands of kindergartens have closed within 4 years. According to China's Ministry of Education, from 2020 to 2024, kindergarten enrollment dropped by 12 million. The number of kindergartens for ages 3 to 5 fell by 41,500 since 2021. China's rapid, irreversible population decline is alarming. Births are now less than half of what they were in 2016. By late 2024, children aged 0 to 15 made up only 17.1% of the population. Worse yet, by 2030, the proportion of children aged 0 to 14 is expected to fall below 15%, officially entering ultra-low fertility. Aging population crisis. The population collapse is mirrored by rapid aging. As of the end of 2023, people aged 65 and above exceeded 200 million, about 15.4% of the population. This severely constrains China's economic growth. A distorted demographic structure weakens long-term economic momentum and will soon be reflected in every aspect of society. Many factors contribute to the declining population: COVID, cultural shifts, changing attitudes toward marriage and childbirth. But the most critical is the severe economic downturn. Young people face record unemployment, worsening the marriage crisis. Many move back with parents. Some cannot afford bride prices or housing. Married couples say the cost of raising a child is unbearable. A survey by Mianyang Statistical Bureau found that more than 80% of respondents cite the 3 costs: childbirth, childcare, education, as the top barrier to having children. Economists and scholars' concerns. Ben Steil of the Council on Foreign Relations warns, unless China solves youth unemployment, its demographic crisis will worsen dramatically. If demographics deteriorate, the economy will deteriorate. This becomes a self-reinforcing political and economic spiral. Political economist James Gorelick argues China's aging population and shrinking workforce will continue to drag down growth. Wages fall, unemployment rises, currency weakens, and the market grows fragile. Style adds, you will see a growing generation of resentment. Authoritarianism can no longer deliver the prosperity it once promised, which may trigger political unrest and weaken social cohesion. As foreign companies flee China in record numbers, the situation is extremely difficult to reverse. China's economic decline is real, structural, irreversible, and dangerous. The CCP is now reaping the consequences of its own disastrous population policies. The backlash is overwhelming, forcing it to adopt yet another stopgap solution, this 3,600 yuan subsidy, while dressing it up with a fertility-friendly label. Public reaction in China. Immediately after the announcement, reactions flooded Weibo, Douyin, X, and various media outlets. 1. Many say the subsidy is far too small. 300 yuan a month cannot offset childcare costs. One ex-user, Lao Man Channel mocked, "Who are you insulting with 300 yuan? Add a zero, make it 3,000, maybe then it means something." Others noted, a single can of formula costs several hundred yuan. Childcare, education, and medical expenses far exceed the subsidy. Comments included, 300 yuan doesn't even cover the tip of childcare fees. 2. Some question the policy's inconsistency. Many pointed out that China still restricts 4 children, and civil servants pregnant with a 4th child must undergo forced abortions. This contradicts the government's call to encourage childbirth. 300 yuan won't fix decades of anti-birth policies. One comment read. 3. Concerns about implementation. People fear bureaucratic hurdles. Will online systems crash? Will offline applications require running between multiple departments? Will subsidies be given only to families who prove hardship, turning it into a humiliating welfare check? 4. Young people emphasize the real issues. They say childbirth decisions hinge on job pressure, housing costs, education burdens, workplace discrimination, lack of parental support policies. 300 yuan doesn't change anything. Life pressure does. One young mother wrote. 5. Mixed responses to past local subsidy experiments. 23 provinces have already piloted local subsidies with mixed reactions. Many called the amounts symbolic rather than practical. Scholars weigh in. Beijing University's Huang Wei says subsidies alone cannot solve childcare challenges. Comprehensive improvements in housing, education, and childcare services are essential. Fudan sociologist Shin Yifei argues that discriminatory workplace practices against women and high living costs will neutralize the effects of subsidies. Renmin University's Song Jian notes that the average cost of raising a child aged 0 to 3 is 538,000 yuan, making the 3,600 yuan subsidy almost meaningless. CAS researcher Wang Guangzhou says the lack of complementary policies, childcare services, maternity leave protections, renders the subsidy more symbolic than structural. Comparison with Japan. Japan's demographic policies offer a reference point. Japan provides 10,000 to 30,000 yen, 66 to 200 USD, monthly child allowance, ages 0 to 15, free or highly subsidized childcare, up to 18 months of paid parental leave. Local childbirth bonuses around 500,000 yen, 5,000 US dollars. Japan's subsidies are 2 to 6 times higher than China's and cover a much wider age range. Japan's childcare services cover about 40% of families, versus China's 6%. Japan also enforces gender equality measures like mandatory paternal leave. As a result, Japan's fertility rate has remained stable at 1.3 to 1.4 for the past decade, while China's is closer to 1.0. Scholars believe Japan's long-term, comprehensive approach is far more effective than China's single cash subsidy. The real question, given China's internal crises, economic decline, political instability, social pressures, what can the CCP realistically do? Can 300 yuan revive a collapsing fertility system? Or is this merely a desperate gesture from a government finally cornered by the consequences of its own policies?